One book, one extraordinary life. 48 chapters of saints, science, and the search for God.
I'm Kai,
And I'm Maya.
and this is our take on Autobiography of a Yogi, chapter by chapter.
1,000 faces, American faces. Yogananda steps off the boat in Boston with his robes and his Sanskrit and his message from the ancient East, and he has no idea what's about to happen.
Chapter 37, Part 2, 1,000 American Faces. He's arrived in America now. The Congress of Religions is behind him. But that was just the opening. The real work, the spreading of the teaching across an entire continent, that's just beginning.
Right. So Yogananda didn't come to America to build an organization. He came to share the message that Babaji gave him, that East and West need each other, that consciousness doesn't care about nationality. And he's going to spend the next years traveling, lecturing, building centers. But the thing that strikes me most is how he reports it all without any ego, He's just describing what happened, the facts, the encounters, the growth of the teaching.
Yeah, and what happened was massive. These American audiences, they're hungry. They want what he's offering. Yogananda travels across the country. He lectures in New York, in Boston, in cities across California. He's giving talks on the Bhagavad Gita, on yoga, on meditation, on the science of self-realization. And people come in droves. Not just a few spiritual seekers, hundreds, thousands eventually. People from all backgrounds.
The book describes how a group gathered in a home in Boston, and it wasn't some grand auditorium. It was intimate. But Yogananda says the spiritual atmosphere was so tangible that people could feel it immediately. They came in and they felt something shift, something in their consciousness. That's the power of a realized being. You don't need a big hall. You need presence. You need someone who is established in samadhi, in union with God, and that state transmits itself.
And then there's this beautiful moment with someone, E. Dickinson, this American businessman who meets Yogananda and becomes absolutely devoted. He's taken with the teaching. He wants to help. He wants to be part of this mission. And Yogananda sees in him not just a student, but a channel for spreading the work in America, someone who has the resources and the dedication to make things possible.
That's the pattern that keeps repeating throughout the chapter. Yogananda meets someone, often an American, someone rooted in this culture, someone with connections to American life, and they recognize something true in him. They see a being who understands both worlds, someone who can translate the ancient East for the modern West, someone who speaks their language, literally and spiritually, and they want to help. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
One of the big things in this chapter is the founding of the Self-Realization Fellowship. Yogananda doesn't come to America with a full organizational blueprint. He comes with a teaching. But as disciples gather, as the work grows, as people are requesting initiation and wanting to study systematically, he realizes he needs a structure. So the Self-Realization Fellowship is created, not as something grand at first, but as a necessary vehicle for the teaching.
It starts small. It starts with meetings in homes, lectures in rented halls, study groups that gather to practice meditation together. But Yogananda is clear about something, and this is important. This isn't about building his name. This isn't about creating a movement around Yogananda the personality. It's about preserving the teaching, making sure that Kriya Yoga reaches people who are ready, and that it's transmitted properly, with real understanding, not watered down or commercialized.
Wait, and the headquarters get established in Los Angeles, right? That's a big moment. He's looking for a location, traveling up and down the California coast, searching for the right spot. He's praying, he's meditating, he's asking for guidance, and eventually he finds this place called Encinitas. It's by the ocean, it's peaceful, it has the kind of space where a spiritual community can actually breathe, where disciples can practice, where he can give initiations, where the teaching can be protected and transmitted to future generations.
Encinitas, the Pacific Ocean. It's one of those prophetic moments. Sri Yukteswar had said something years ago about a hermitage by the ocean. And here it is. Yogananda is fulfilling that vision. He's building what will become the heart of Self-Realization Fellowship in America, a place that still stands today as a sanctuary for practitioners, a place where the tradition continues.
And during his early years traveling, he's not just giving public lectures, he's also meeting all kinds of people. Scientists, philosophers, writers, businessmen, doctors, college professors. He's encountering American culture in all its diversity, and he's bringing the teaching into dialogue with Western thought. He's quoting the Bible, he's talking about Christianity, he's showing that the ancient science of Kriya Yoga isn't opposed to Western understanding, it complements it.
One of the stories that really moves me is about Mr. Dickinson. This man had been waiting for his guru for decades. He'd seen Yogananda in a vision once in Chicago, years before they actually met. He was drowning as a boy, and a figure appeared to him in that moment of crisis, a man with luminous eyes. And when they finally do meet years later in Los Angeles, Dickinson recognizes him immediately. He says, "That's the man from my vision." And there's this whole chain of causality that Yogananda is describing. The guru appears to the disciple before they meet in the flesh.
That's not magic in the sense of something supernatural. That's the law of attraction on the spiritual plane. The disciple's sincere seeking calls to the guru across time and space. The guru's consciousness is omnipresent. He hears the cry of the disciple, and he responds, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in visions, sometimes by arranging the circumstances so that they meet.
Yeah, and Dickinson becomes this devoted practitioner. He practices Kriya Yoga, he waits, he serves. And at Christmas one year, Yogananda gives him a silver cup that he'd promised him decades earlier. The teaching takes time, it's not rushed. The guru sees the disciple's longing and meets him exactly where he is. The silver cup appears when the moment is right, when the disciple has prepared himself through years of practice.
That's what I mean when I say Yogananda is showing the mechanics. He's not just telling miracle stories. He's describing something that most spiritual teachers would gloss over or turn into pure mysticism. But he's precise, he's analytical. The guru moves in time. The guru's consciousness reaches backward and forward, and the disciple's genuine seeking creates a resonance. The meeting is never accidental. It's always dharma. It's always ordained. It's the fulfillment of karma.
And then there's the traveling itself. Yogananda is covering vast distances. He's going up the coast of California, he's going to different cities, he's giving lectures at night, he's conducting something called sunrise services. These become famous. People gather at dawn to meditate with him and listen to the teaching. And what he emphasizes is that this isn't spectacle. It's not about drawing crowds for its own sake. It's about creating the conditions for real experience.
Hold on. The sunrise services at Encinitas. I want to sit with that image. Several hundred students gathering at dawn, the ocean in the background, the light just breaking over the water, the Pacific stretching out towards distant horizons. And they're doing what? Meditating, chanting sacred sounds, listening to the teaching about the nature of consciousness. That's not entertainment. That's direct transmission of consciousness. You don't get that from a lecture you read. You get that from being in the presence of a realized being at the time when the mind is most receptive.
Right, and Yogananda describes how the work expands from there. The Self-Realization Fellowship isn't just in Los Angeles. Centers begin to open in other cities: Boston, San Diego, Washington, D.C., New York. Young disciples are being trained to teach, to initiate, to carry on the work in their communities. He's building a lineage in America, just as Babaji foresaw when he told Yogananda that Western souls were calling to him and needed to be awakened.
And here's something I think gets overlooked in the way this period is often described. Yogananda is translating consciousness, not just words. He's showing American disciples what it means to practice real yoga, not the physical exercise version that becomes popular later. Real yoga, the science of uniting individual consciousness with cosmic consciousness, through breath, through meditation, through a systematic practice that doesn't depend on belief or cultural background. It's reproducible, it's scientific, it works.
The book describes how Yogananda is giving lectures at churches, at universities, at public halls, Carnegie Hall in New York, and the response is overwhelming. In 1926, America in the 1920s, and this Indian Swami is opening minds. He's speaking about the universality of religion, about how Christianity and Hinduism are describing the same truth from different angles, the same inner experience, named differently in different traditions.
And what's remarkable is how he does it without denying anything. He's not saying forget your Christian faith and become Hindu. He's not dismissing Western science or Western culture. He's saying understand the science beneath your faith. Understand that Christ knew samadhi. Understand that the experience of union with God is the same whether you call it samadhi or the kingdom of heaven or enlightenment. The state is universal, only the names differ.
One thing that strikes me in this chapter is Yogananda's humor about all of it. He talks about the challenges, the cultural clashes, American students who don't understand Indian customs that don't translate to American life, the confusion about how to eat, how to dress, how to approach spiritual practice in a Western context. But he reports it all with warmth. He's not frustrated, he's not angry, he's just observing. Look, this is what happened. This is the reality of bringing an ancient teaching into a modern culture.
Yeah, and that's the mark of a real guru. He's not offended by differences. He's not trying to make America into India or India into America. He's just opening the door to the teaching and letting the truth speak for itself. If the teaching is real, it doesn't need cultural clothing. It doesn't need a particular form. It speaks directly to consciousness. And consciousness is the same everywhere, in India or America, in 1800 or 1900.
And then there's the founding of the center at Encinitas itself, the hermitage by the ocean. Yogananda describes looking out over the property and seeing what Sri Yukteswar had prophesied, a place of peace, a place where the teaching could be preserved and transmitted. He establishes it as a headquarters, as a sanctuary where disciples can come to deepen their practice, to receive initiation into the deeper secrets of Kriya Yoga.
I really love the detail about how he's building this. He's not imposing a vision from above. He's not forcing it through sheer will. He's allowing it to unfold. American disciples come forward. American businessmen help fund it. The teaching is meeting America, and America is opening to receive it. It's not conquest. It's not missionary activity in the old sense. It's two cultures recognizing something true in each other.
And Yogananda is constantly writing, giving interviews, articles for magazines and journals. He's getting the word out that yoga is science, not religion, that it works, that it's available to anyone who wants to practice sincerely. He's demystifying something that had been hidden in the Himalayas for centuries. He's bringing it to the marketplace, to the cities, to ordinary people who had never heard of yoga before.
You know, what gets me is his relationship to the Self-Realization Fellowship itself. He's not attached to it as his organization. He doesn't need it for validation or for his ego. He says the teaching is what matters. The lineage is what matters. The transmission from guru to disciple is what matters. The fellowship is just the container. If tomorrow he had to close it all down and practice in a cave, he'd do it. But while he's here, while the door is open, he's going to use it fully.
And the disciples who are gathering around him in those early American years, they're not all Hindu. They're Christians, they're Jews, they're agnostics, they're scientists, they're artists, they're business people, they're housewives, they're college students, they're people from all walks of life. And what unites them is the hunger for direct experience of God, for samadhi, for union with the eternal. And Yogananda is saying, yes, this is available to you. Not someday, not after you die. Now.
That's revolutionary for America in the 1920s. You could go to church and believe in God, you could pray, you could live a moral life, but the idea that you could directly experience God's presence, that you could realize the self as identical with the cosmic self, that wasn't part of the Christian mainstream. That wasn't taught in universities. And here's this Swami saying, this is reproducible. This is science. Come, learn, practice, experience it yourself.
Seriously. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's why people respond to him. Not because he's exotic or charismatic in the usual sense, but because he's offering something real, a path, a science, a guru who embodies what he's teaching and can initiate you into practices that work, methods that have been tested for thousands of years.
And the chapter is really painting a picture of those early years. The travels, the lectures, the meetings in homes and halls, the founding of centers, the growth of the fellowship. It's all momentum. It's all part of Babaji's plan unfolding. The deathless guru saw this. He saw Yogananda bringing the teaching to the West. He saw the Self-Realization Fellowship becoming a beacon for spiritual seekers.
The thing that ties it all together is something Yogananda keeps coming back to, the relationship between East and West. India has the ancient wisdom, the great spiritual truths, but it's losing touch with practical life, becoming impoverished. The West has dynamism and scientific method and industry, but it's lost the spiritual foundation. It's becoming materialistic. What if they could merge? What if the East could learn action and innovation from the West, and the West could learn consciousness and inner peace from the East?
That's the golden middle path that Babaji talked about when he met Yogananda at the Kumbh Mela. That's what Yogananda is embodying in America. He's not asking America to become Hindu. He's not asking the West to reject its culture and retreat to the Himalayas. He's saying, can we integrate? Can we take the best of both? And the fact that people are responding, that centers are opening, that disciples are practicing, that shows it's possible. The synthesis is real.
And what's beautiful is that this isn't the end of the story. This is just the beginning. Yogananda is in America now. The teaching is beginning to spread. The Self-Realization Fellowship is being established. Centers are opening. But the deepest work, the writing of the autobiography itself, that's still to come. The teaching will deepen. The mission will expand. The understanding will grow. But it all starts here, in these early years, with a young Swami stepping onto American shores and saying, "I have come to awaken the divine nature within you."
Aha! And that message never changes. Throughout his entire life in America, whether he's giving a huge public lecture at Carnegie Hall or sitting with one disciple in a small room, the message is always the same. You are not separate from God. You are consciousness. You are eternal. And you can experience this directly through the science of Kriya Yoga.
Which brings us to the next phase of his mission, the deeper work of building the Self-Realization Fellowship, the establishment of centers across America, the training of disciples who will carry on the work, the writing and teaching that will make his method available to spiritual seekers far beyond his lifetime, the foundation for something that will outlive him.
And that's where the story goes next, from the arrival and early spreading of the teaching to the long work of building something that can outlive him, something that preserves the lineage, something that keeps the door open for future generations, the work that continues to this day.
The light that Babaji set in motion, the teaching that came through Lahiri Mahasaya and Sri Yukteswar, is now being planted in American soil, and it will grow. It will bear fruit. And that fruit will nourish countless souls who never expected to find God through a Bengali Swami in California. See you next time.